Be familiar with First Merchants. I was telling Anna, our speaker, that my husband and I are First Merchants customers, so big fans of theirs. But anyway, they have kindly agreed to talk to us tonight about identity theft. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna Patterson from First Merchants, and she's going to talk about identity theft and scams. See how much we have time for. If you just signed on, she was saying that she welcomes questions, and so I'll let her tell you a little bit more about her background, and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm with First Merchants Bank. I'm part of the fraud unit. I've been in banking for 30 years, but started out as a teller and worked my way up to investigations. So I've been at this quite a long time, but I am one of the security officers with First Merchants Bank. So I do investigations and work physical security, a little bit of everything, but identity theft and scams is a big portion of what I do because a lot of our customers are falling victim to scams. So why don't we go ahead and jump into my program. Come on. There we go. All right, this gives you an idea of some of the breakdowns per state of where the identity theft is more prominent than other areas. So, obviously Indiana, you can see it's a lighter shade of the pinkish color. So we're kind of mid-range, but you can see from the map that yeah, Illinois is pretty heavy on identity theft, but it gives you a breakdown of some of the different types, government, credit cards, loan fraud, bank fraud. So there's different facets of identity theft and how it impacts people. So for the year of 2020, there was close to 1.4 million reports of different identity theft victims. So quite a few people. And this graph shows you the age range. Now, does anybody here, have you either been a victim of identity thefts or scams or know anybody that has been? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
That's pretty
No.
amazing.
But looking
No,
at
I'm
this,
sorry, no.
no, you're fine. Yeah, I think probably the most of the people that fall victim to identity theft seems to be within the range of 30 years old to 49. And your younger people are going to be more people at that age range is going to fall victim to identity thefts. But once the people that end up losing the most are the ones that are age 70 and plus. So more people younger, but when the older people do fall victim, usually the losses are larger. And again, your fraud types, out of all of the different reports, your fraud losses are around almost 2.2 million, and again 1.4 for identity theft. So pretty close to the total fraud losses. Okay, so how exactly does identity theft happen? There's low tech and there's high tech ways that it happens. First of all, the low tech, it can happen either through lost or stolen mail, or your trash has gone through, you lose your purse or your wallet, or through social engineering. So, as far as the lost or stolen wallet or purse, that's pretty self-explanatory. You lose your purse, and any personal information that was in your purse could make you an identity theft victim. So what I usually suggest to people is don't carry your Social Security card in your purse or wallet. That way, in case something like this does happen, they're not going to have that social security card. So, there may be an occasion where you need to bring your social security card somewhere, but when you get done with the purpose of why you have the card, then put that away somewhere safe. Don't keep that in your purse or wallet at all times. As far as your stolen mail, a lot of people don't use the mailbox anymore at the curb. They either do everything online, or some people will take their mail to a post office box or mailboxes, etc. But the fraudsters, what some of them do is they're trolling the neighborhood looking for that red flag up. So you put your mail in the mailbox, you put the red flag. In the day it used to be you put your mail in the box and nobody bothers it. But unfortunately nowadays, people do see the red flag. There could potentially be something in there important, and they may or may not get into your mailbox and steal what's in there. Especially at tax time, if you do mail out your tax paperwork, then everything that they could possibly need is right there in one envelope. So just be careful, what you put out. If it's something really, really important, you might consider taking it to mailboxes, etc. That way it's not sitting out at the mailbox all day. As far as your stolen trash, what they're looking for is, pre-approved credit cards. I don't know, do you guys get a lot of those pre-approved credit cards where all you have to do is fill out the paperwork, and they'll be happy to give you a line of credit or a credit card? And that's what they're hoping to get. If they get that out of your mailbox, they can fill it all in, has your identity on it, and you don't even know that it was in the mailbox until you have a credit report run, and then there's that line of credit on your report. If you still get bank statements in the mail, they could get a hold of that. Credit card bills, if your credit card bill happens to have your full account number on it, telephone bills, really anything that they can use to build that profile on you. And social engineering, what this is they use deception and manipulation to try to get confidential information out of you. So typically that's done over the phone. Someone can call your business and try to get information on you. They'll pose as someone with authority and use scare tactics to get information out of you. So you may get a phone call from someone that says that they're from the IRS, or they're from your bank's security department, and they're conducting an investigation and they need to verify some information. And before you know it, you're giving a complete stranger your social security number, your date of birth, anything that might be confidential, and now they're all set. So that's low tech. The other way is through high tech means. So I'm sure you've probably heard of some of the data breaches. That's going to be one of the biggest ones. I know back in 2013, Target had a big problem where their system had gotten hacked, and you had to start closing your credit cards, and it was a hot mess. But I know Target, they had lost, or they had several records that were compromised. Anthem had a problem, Equifax, and I know Marriott back in 2018, they had a huge data breach of their system, and the scammers ended up getting over 500 million records with one data breach. So a data breach, depending on what system they hack into, they could get names, addresses, especially the Equifax. That's dipping into your credit reports. So they're going to get everything that's on your credit reports. Same thing with Anthem, that's your health records. So they're getting a lot of good information by getting into that system. Your malware and spyware, and what that is, malware is software that's intended to damage or disable your computers, spyware. So you have to be careful who you let into your computer. Sometimes scammers will manipulate you to try to get you to let them remote into your computer. So once they remote into your computer, then they can actually download these different types of software to kind of in the background gather information as you're using your computer. Spyware can capture any kind of keystrokes and look at where you're going, and possibly getting your logon information. Say you get into your online banking. So really any number of things can happen once they're into your computer. Your phishing emails, and it's kind of like what it sounds. They're phishing for information. So you might get an email that appears to be coming from someone legitimate. So I don't know, I'm sure probably all of you or most of you have gotten the fake emails that says that it's from the IRS, that you haven't paid your taxes and you're subject to either an IRS audit or you're going to be arrested, and they want to make sure they have the right person, and they need to confirm that with you giving them your social security number. I mentioned before, you think you're dealing with your bank's security and they're conducting an investigation, and what they're trying to get out of you is confidential information. And skimming, and on the slide gives you a picture of what one of the different types of skimmers look like. And I'm sure you've probably heard on the news or you've read articles. What the skimmer is, they can put these on anywhere where there's a card reader. So it could be on ATM machines, it could be on gas pumps. I've even heard of skimmers being on the when you're at the store, at the grocery store, and you've got that little box that you have to either slide your card or put it into the bottom. That one of the stores that one of our investigators was working on, they actually put a fake skimmer that looked like the box. They actually laid it on top of the authentic one. So when people were using that card swipe machine, they were actually swiping it through a skimmer instead of it actually going through the real one. So what the skimmer is it's skimming off the information off the back of your card. So that mag stripe on the back of your card, that has a lot of information on your account, your name. All the information is electronically in that stripe. So when you put your card through a skimmer, so say it's on an ATM machine, they're going to put it over the card slot. That way, when you put your card in the ATM machine, it's skimming all the information as it's passing through that skimmer, and it's capturing all the information off of it. So they can, once they gather all of that information, then they can either sell the data or they can later recreate fake credit cards with the information that they've pulled from your magstripe. So those are some of your high-tech ways that they can take care of that. Any questions at all on how it could happen?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Question.
How can it happen?
I'm sorry.
How can you hear me? How can that happen?
How can what happen?
What you said about I had a question how that happens when you were talking about the scamming.
As far as what happens, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That latter part of your question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think I understand what you're asking me.
No, what you had said, does anybody have a question? I was asking how can that happen because if it's a skimmer scamming,
Uh-huh.
can they be proficient at that?
Some of these fraudsters are very proficient on what they do. That they, I know at one of my prior banks, what this group had done is they had put multiple skimming devices on different ATM machines, and they're brazen enough that they're actually putting these devices in the middle of the day. They don't, because they're at the ATM, you don't suspect what's going on. They put the device on the ATM and it'll sit there for probably hours, if not a whole day. So as you're using your card, you put it in, you're doing your thing. Unbeknownst to you, they're capturing your information and everybody else that's using that ATM machine. When they're done gathering as much information as they think that they're going to get, because they don't want to lose the device. So when they get enough data, they'll come back, take the device back off of the card, and they have a way of downloading the information in the skimming device that they've captured. But some of them they're good at what they do. That's why it's probably a good idea. I'm going to explain this a little bit later, but it's a good idea to take a look at say the ATM. If any time that anything looks really weird with the machine, then don't use it. You can always kind of tug a little bit on the card reader. If it's really loose, or definitely if it comes off in your hand, then you obviously know there's a problem. But if it's loose, you can look for, sometimes what they'll do is they'll put a pinhole camera in the lighting. So if you look up, if you see a little bitty pinhole that might be aimed towards the keypad, that could be, you're putting your card into the machine, it's capturing the information that they need to make the card. So they're going to need a pinhole camera to capture the PIN number. So one device is capturing the data, another device is capturing the PIN number. Or I've seen them put a fake brochure holder on the ATM, so it's kind of off to the side. Again, has the pinhole camera that's aimed towards the keypad, so they're capturing PIN numbers. So does it happen a lot? No, but it does happen. Sometimes at restaurants, hopefully this doesn't happen a lot, but they have a little device that, and all of us do it. You pay for your meal, you give your credit card or your debit card to the waitress. She walks off with your card. You don't know what she's done with the card after she's left.
Mm-hmm.
If she has a portable skimming device, she could be paying for your meal legitimately, and then she runs it through her skimming device and she's capturing it from all of her customers for the day.
Mm.
Not that I want to scare you guys by any means, but those are some of the ways that it does happen. So how can you what can you do to avoid it? So one, don't leave your purse and wallet unattended. And again, I mentioned before, don't keep your Social Security card in your purse or wallet. Again, the mailbox, a lot of people don't use the mailbox anymore. And I'm kind of going clockwise on the screen. Be careful what information you give to people on the phone, especially if you're not the one initiating the conversation. So if you're getting a cold call from someone and they're asking for a lot of personal information, just be careful what you give.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not the one making the phone call, because you don't really, how do you know for sure who you're dealing with? Especially if anytime you feel really uncomfortable, you can always hang up and call back and let, if the person says they're from your credit card company and you just get an odd feeling about the person, you can always hang up and then call your credit card company back at a number that you know is the credit card company and let them know about the call you just got. And either they can confirm that it was authentic, or they can tell you, oh, no, we would never ask you this or ask you that. Most credit card companies or banks are not going to ask you to divulge confidential information. You know, we can see that kind of information on our computer. There are other ways of verifying your identity other than asking you to divulge social security numbers. They really don't need that information. My suggestion would be to invest in a shredder. Yeah, the best thing would be a cross cut or confetti cut. I usually tell people to avoid the strip shreds, because those ones that shred in strips, those can be taped back together. So make it as hard for them as possible. So if somebody does get in your trash and gets into your shred, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to try to put together confetti cut or cross cut. I can't imagine that anybody would try to tape all that back together. Be careful what you give online. Yeah, it's not a good idea to use a debit card for online purchases. So if you are going to buy something online, what I would suggest is either have a dedicated credit card that you use for your online purchases, or at least have some sort of credit card instead of your debit card. So if the card does get compromised online, if you use a debit card and someone gets a hold of the number, that's affecting your livelihood. So if they do get a hold of the debit card, you know, your mortgage payments could bounce, your rent could not get paid. You know, that's affecting a lot of different things. But a credit card, that's going to be safer. That way, if it does get compromised, they shut it down. Eventually, after you do your affidavits and your police report, the money will get put back into your account. But the debit card is going to cause a lot of damage if it is compromised. Be careful what you give online. You know, the fraudsters are going to troll through social media to gather personal information, especially your young people. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the younger people, they share way too much on social media. And that's what, you know, again, the fraudsters are looking for information. So if they have a potential victim, you know, they could get onto Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, to try to get as much information about the person as possible. And they can use that information to try to social media more information out of you. So, you know, I've had several of our customers that are falling victim to people on Facebook Messenger. So they think that they're dealing with someone that's either an old friend or a family member that they haven't talked to in years that just suddenly shows up out of the blue. You know, it could very well be that they trolled through Facebook or Instagram to get some of these names and information. And if you really give too much out there and anybody can see your pages, that's why you want to make things as secure as possible and only have friends and family that can access your Facebook page. Virus protection and firewalls. It's always a good idea to have both on your computer or your smartphone. Periodically change your passwords and try to make your passwords a little bit more difficult to figure out. You know, use numbers and letters and characters and not use the same password for everything. So if somebody figures out one password, you don't want to set it up where now they're going to know the password to everything you have. Two-part authentication. I'm sure you've probably heard, I know that a lot of banks have two-part authentication. Amazon, I know my Amazon account offers two-part authentication, but if any time that you're offered this, it's probably a good idea to take part in it. It's really an added layer of security. That way, when you sign on to it, the two-part authentication is when you sign on to, say, your Amazon account, you have to go through one more layer of security. So you'll either get a text message or a phone call with a code. And it's just that one more step that you have to go through in order to get into your account. So yeah, it's definitely something to look into. And I mentioned before with the skimming devices, some of the things that, other than the card slots a little loose and the pinhole cameras, what you can also look for is gouge marks. Because I've had fraudsters that have put skimming devices on an ATM. And one of the things that we have our branch staff look at when they go out, because they do go out and look at every day the ATM for any signs that the machine has been tampered with. And we had a group that, I don't know if it's the tape or the adhesive that they put the skimming device onto the machine, must have been really strong, because they had to really work at it to get it off. And we had noticed some gouge marks around the card slot. So that's another thing that you can look for. Okay. Another thing that you can do to protect yourself is be careful on public Wi-Fi. Yeah, I know that a lot of businesses offer free public Wi-Fi, and you go to, Starbucks has free Wi-Fi, McDonald's, a lot of restaurants offer this, but these Wi-Fi at these businesses is not always secure. So you want to make sure, especially like hotels, airports, yeah, and it's a convenience, but it's something that you have to be careful when you use it. What a lot of people suggest is that you download a VPN. It's a virtual private network. And it's an added layer of security that you sign up for this VPN. And I know, and I'm not going to suggest any particular types over any other ones, but I know Norton has it through one of their software programs. There are other VPN companies, but what it does, it's when it's connected, all of your internet traffic is sent from your computer through an encrypted tunnel to the provider of the VPN. So it's a way of protecting your IP address. That way they're not going to see where you've been, and really it makes you a little less vulnerable. If you are on the public Wi-Fi, you definitely don't want to do any shopping on this public Wi-Fi. Don't go to your bank accounts, because if the Wi-Fi is not secure, whatever you're doing electronically is going all over the place. So it's traveling where the bad guys, if they're out there capturing the data, that they can just pick and choose this information that's floating around if it's not a secure website. So you want to make sure that you are using an encrypted website. So your encrypted websites will scramble the information over the internet, and an encrypted connection between your web browser and the site company. So you have encrypted websites and you have secure wireless networks. So you want to make sure that and unfortunately, some of these public Wi-Fis, they really don't divulge the type of networks that they're using. Your WEP and your WPAs are some of the oldest ones, and they may not be as strong. But from what I've read online, your WPA2 and WPA3 have a stronger security protocol. That way, if you are using that wireless network, it's going to be better than some of the older ones. But if you do use them, just be careful what you get into when you are using them. And I'm sure you've probably seen the HTTP and the HTTPS. The biggest difference really between the two of them, that little S means that it's secure. So yeah, you may see the little the lock. If it is a fake website, you know, they can always fake the little lock. But if the address that you're on does say HTTPS, then it is a secure website. And then when you are on the public Wi-Fi, make sure that you always sign out when you're done. And there is a way of setting up an automatic connectivity. That way, when you sign into Wi-Fi, it just automatically connects you. If you are going to use these public Wi-Fis, it's probably not a good idea to have that turned on. That way, if you're using a network that you're not normally using, you don't want it to automatically connect. You know, that way it gives you the opportunity to control the situation. Questions? Okay.
No.
Okay. So, yeah, knock on wood, yeah, ID theft happens. So what do you do now? You know, what's the recovery process after you get done with the shock that you've fallen victim of identity theft? You know, what happens next? So what you want to make sure is you contact your bank, contact your credit cards, change any logon credentials and your password. So say your online banking gets compromised, then you definitely want to make sure, one, that you have someone take a look at your computer to make sure nothing has been downloaded. So say you let someone into your computer, you thought you were dealing with Microsoft because you had a pop-up come up on your computer, and you let them in, you get into your online banking. So while they're in there with you, they can see what you're entering. So now your logon has been compromised. If you happen to give out your social security number or whatever the damage is where you need to call. So you're contacting your bank, and what they can do, if the accounts have been compromised, your bank should be able to place hold on your account. That way it protects the money in your account. They can place alerts that you're a victim of identity theft. And a lot of banks now are offering profile passwords. I know First Merchants does this. If any of our customers are victim of identity theft, what we can do is kind of an added layer of security. We can add a password to your profile. That way, if the scammers were to call in and pretend to be you, they would need to know that specific password in order to proceed further in the conversation. So if they can't come up with the password, then what we do is we instruct the person on the phone to go to one of the banking centers in person. So if it's our customer and they just happen to forget what their password is, you know, that's unfortunate, but they're going to have to go in to a banking center. That way we know that they are who they say they are. But if it's a scammer, they're obviously not going to go to a banking center, and what they were attempting to do stops because they don't have the password. Same thing with your credit card companies. They can close the compromised accounts, place identity theft alerts, and get a whole new account for you. And again, change your logon credentials. It's always a good idea to file a police report. So if you are a victim of identity theft, that way that is going to be on record. and you can go to the Federal Trade Commission, and if you go to ftc.gov, there is a dedicated section for scams that gives you a list of all the different types of scams and lets you know exactly how they work. And there's also a whole section on ID theft. And there's a lot of good information out there. So if you are a victim, they have different PDFs that you can actually pull up, brochures that will let you know who you need to call, really the initial steps of how to get a hold of the credit bureaus, you know, what's their phone numbers, any email addresses. They also have an identity theft workbook. And I know when our customers fall victim of identity theft and they actually have damage from identity theft, we do have brochures that we give our customers that there's form letters in there, again, who to call, a lot more detail, but the FTC does have information, anything you could possibly need after being a victim, it's there at your fingertips. If you are a victim, I suggest at minimum that you get an alert placed on your credit bureaus. Some people opt for a complete freeze, but it's always a good idea to do one or the other. As far as your credit bureaus, there's 3 major credit bureaus. There's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You can either go to their website, you can give them a call, you can do it through the mail. It just depends on your level of comfort. Some people don't want to do it online, and you can do it over the phone, but between the two, there's the fraud alert and the credit freeze. The alert, that's going to allow the creditors to get a copy of your credit as long as they verify your identity. So it's really kind of a stopping point. Hey, Mrs. Smith is a victim of identity theft. That's going to tell them that they need to get more information to make sure that they can verify who they're dealing with. You only have to contact one of the major credit bureaus. Once you file the alert with, say, Experian, Experian will contact TransUnion and Equifax to get the alerts placed there as well. Your initial alert is for 1 year, but you can extend that out for 7 years. And there is no charge for either the fraud alert or the credit freeze. It used to be they charged you to do this, but the laws have changed, and because identity theft is so rampant, that they have made it free. Your credit freezes, this is actually going to lock down your credit. So if someone was to try to, if someone was to try to pull your credit, they're not going to be able to do that. So not only are the scammers or fraudsters not going to be able to do anything with your credit, neither are you. So it's full restriction. And when you put this freeze on your credit bureau, they do give you a PIN number. You need to make sure that it's really, really important that you protect that PIN and put it somewhere safe, because it is very difficult to unfreeze your credit if you don't have that PIN number. So make sure you protect that PIN number. Okay, and some of the places that you can actually report this. If you are a victim of internet crime, you can go to ic3.gov. Again, like I mentioned before, you can go to the Federal Trade Commission and file a report there. And they also have affidavits that you can complete. And you can also get a copy of your credit report. Once a year, you can get a free report. So it's probably a good idea periodically to have a credit report run on you. If you haven't applied for anything and you haven't had it run, not a bad idea to go ahead and either go to annualcreditreport.com or you can call that 877-322-8228 and get that credit report. I know myself, I had a problem that someone had gotten a hold of one of my credit cards probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and they had a good time at Christmas on me. You know, they were buying Coach. I don't know what they bought at Coach, but it was hundreds of dollars that they spent at Coach, and yeah, I had to get that taken care of. So not knowing what all has been done to me, I even had some of my accounts that people had gotten into. I had Amazon, they actually locked me out of my Amazon account. I had to prove who I was to get my Amazon account back. They did the same to me at AT&T, any number of places, and who knows what still that I don't know about. But part of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that my credit report was clean, that there wasn't anything on there that I wasn't aware of. So you can go on there and get a copy of your credit report. I did mine right online.
Anna, if you've put a freeze on your credit, do you have to lift that, take it off to get the credit report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't, if you do a credit freeze, nobody would be able to get it. So good point. Yeah, you would have to lift it. And from what I've read online, what they had suggested that if you were going to lift it, that it takes about 3 days for it to take effect, I guess, for the credit reports to catch up. So I guess if you are needing to have something pulled, then probably do it to kind of plan ahead of time. But you're absolutely right. I don't think you would be able to pull a credit report if you had a freeze on it. Any questions? Okay. And some of you may or may not be part of First Merchants, but I'm sure probably a lot of other banks offer the same things. But we have text and fraud alerts, you know, through either our online banking or our debit cards. We have what we call a Falcon alert. And what this does, it's an outside company that we have hired, and they're looking for unusual activity on your card. So if you've never ever used your debit card or your credit card at a gas pump, and all of a sudden there's been gas pump charges, or even if you legitimately used your card at a gas pump, it could trigger an alert with this company, and they want to make sure that the person using your card is actually you. So they'll contact you through the bank and try to verify the legitimacy of the transaction. Our online banking is secure. I know First Merchants offers the two-part authentication, so it's more difficult to get in. And actually, if they're not calling or texting from the phone that's connected to the account, then it's really next to impossible to get in unless they get a hold of your phone. Our mobile banking has the secure HTTPS encryption, and we do have the MasterCard enhanced benefits and ID theft. So we do offer free identity theft monitoring. If you sign up for it, then there's some added protection for you. There is zero liability for purchases, for fraud, card replacement, and then if you do fall victim of identity theft, then we can help you, give you the next steps on what to do. So before I go into scams, does anybody have any questions on what I've covered, or maybe what I haven't covered for identity theft?
No.
and I'm sure you've probably heard this, probably mom has said it, you've probably heard it, you've probably said it. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Yeah, I know I've been told that, you've probably been told that, you don't get something for nothing. It should be common sense, but sometimes people, when they fall victim to scams, the blinders come up. They don't want to hear it. So they're seeing the promises of maybe money further down the road, and they don't want to hear any common sense because they've bought into the story. So some of the different types of scams that we see with our customers is your romance scams, pop-up scams. You get contacted that you won the lottery, imposter scams. You're selling something on eBay or Craigslist and you get scammed, secret shoppers, and even our the grandparents are getting scammed. They think that they're dealing with family members, and it turns out it's not actually their family members. So there's different types of scams. So how do these scams actually happen? So it could be any number of ways that you get a phone call, an email, maybe you get a text message. You sign up for a dating website, so maybe you meet somebody that way, and they're not who they say they are, or don't have your best intention or your best interest at heart. Your computer pop-ups, or you might get an enticing mail and get yourself in trouble. So how are you going to protect yourself from all of these scams? Best way is education. So really educating yourself to scams, and I'm going to touch on a lot of these major scams tonight. But again, you can go to the FTC's website, and they have a lot of good information on each of the different types of scams, gives you some tips on how the scam works. They talk about, again, how to protect yourself, how to really tell that you are being scammed, and that way you're not going to lose any money or any confidential information. Know who you're dealing with. Don't open any suspicious texts or respond to pop-ups or click any attachments if you're suspicious of them. And be cautious of letting anyone remote into your computer. Unless you're really confident with who you're dealing with. So say you are having problems with your computer and you need to get a hold of Microsoft. What I have always suggested, when you do a Google search, maybe you don't know what the phone number is for Microsoft. I wouldn't know what the number is. So if you Google it, don't go with the first thing that pops up on your Google search. Go a little ways down, because sometimes what the fraudsters will do is they will put stuff on Google, and it could be ads, it could be a fake site. A lot of times the fraud is up at the top. So go further down and look for the web address to make sure that it looks like what you're clicking on is actually Microsoft. Be careful what you share on social media, which I mentioned that before. Some people just share way too much. You get on there and you tell people you're going on vacation next week, so now you're vulnerable that somebody could break into your house. Beware of any requests for your financial information or money, and be wary of unusual payments. So people asking for gift cards or Bitcoin, iTunes gift cards, just weird things that people are asking you to do. And I talked about this earlier before we started, but I think probably one of the biggest scams that our customers are falling for is the romance scam. And victims of romance scams are some of the hardest ones to convince that they are being scammed. So, the COVID pandemic, I think, has provided additional opportunity for romance scammers to put off meeting the people in person. So that's a good reason for them to tell them, well, we can't meet now, but so they're building that rapport with their potential victim. But these romance scams often take place on dating websites, Facebook Messenger, gaming chat rooms. I had a lady that she was a victim of a romance scam, and the guy that she dealt with, and truly, who do you know? How do you know who you're truly dealing with? How do you even know it's a guy? You're dealing with an anonymous person in a chat room. She met this guy on Dice with Friends and dealt with him for a very long time, and she ended up losing quite a bit of money. It's also called catfishing, so I'm sure you've probably heard of that term. But they use stolen photos from the internet to build that fake persona. So they need to make this sound as believable as possible. And a lot of the people that do fall victim of this, a lot of the ones that I have, they're usually, I would say, between 60 and 75 years old. So they're older. A lot of the ladies are recent, either divorced or their husband just recently passed away. They're lonely. They get into these chat rooms or they get onto some of these dating websites and they're looking for love online, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just keep your eyes open and listen. Don't get so caught up in the romance and the story that they're spinning. That way, in case it is someone that is attempting to scam you out of money, because that's usually what the end game is. They're spinning the story, and if they truly are scamming, they want to make things as believable as possible, and be a little cautious of them professing strong feelings for you after only a few contacts. That kind of thing takes time. So if things are progressing way too fast and they're suddenly in love, and just step back a little bit and don't rush into it. Some of our customers, the scammers, had claimed to be from the US, but they're traveling or working overseas. I've had a number of them where their supposed boyfriend was working on an oil rig, and that's a big one. After gaining your trust, and they're going to tell you an elaborate story, asking for money and gifts. If I could teach anybody anything with romance scams, anytime that it is progressing to anything dealing with money, that's where you need to get away. You need to step away from it or find somebody else. Because that's what these people do. They're looking for you to either give up personal information or money. 9 times out of 10, what they're wanting is money. And there's going to be some desperation, and they're persistent. Some of them are very persistent. And if you're showing a little reluctancy, that what they will do, well, you must not love me, or you must not care about me, that you won't do this for me, that I'm having trouble getting a hold of my, I've had some that have, their boyfriend supposedly has a child that's in college, and they're trying to get money to them, but for whatever reason, they have to go through our customer as a middleman. And the customer or the victim is already invested in the story, and they've been groomed for a long time. So, they're emotionally invested in the persona that this person has set up for them. Probably the most extreme that I've had is I had a customer that she sold, and I'm not going to tell you what she sold, but she was selling something online, and the person contacted her, and supposedly she thought that this person was Kenny Chesney, that Kenny Chesney showed an interest in what she was selling online. Why she thought that Kenny Chesney out of the blue was contacting her, but their supposed relationship had progressed, that they were getting married, but she had never met Kenny Chesney. You know, she had seen him before, and supposedly she must have maybe done those backstage things, because in her head, that was where she had met him before. So she thought she was truly dealing with him. And it had progressed for quite a while, and it eventually progressed to him needing help financially. That there was a guitar that had to be picked up, and he needed her help. You know, if she could pick up the guitar, there was money that was owed. If she would pay for it, and he would get the money back to her. And of course she did it, because she thought she was dealing with Kenny Chesney. You know, just the idea that she was marrying him. Kenny Chesney doesn't need help from a middle-aged woman in Ohio. He doesn't. He makes 46 million. I think at the time we found he was making $46 million a year. He doesn't need her help financially with anything. He should be spending money on her, not the other way around. But she wasn't seeing that. She was caught up in the story. She thought she was dealing with him. Obviously it wasn't. You know, we had gone as far as contacting Kenny Chesney's personal his helper, and made sure that none of this was true, and of course it wasn't. We had given her that information. She still didn't believe us. So just to make sure that you keep your eyes open, like I said, on these romance scams. Don't fall for their promises, and there's always going to be an excuse. I touched on this a little bit, your pop-up alert scams. So you're on your computer, suddenly a box comes up on your computer that you've been infected, and we want to help you. Here's a phone number to call. One, don't respond to those pop-ups, and never call the phone number that's on there. Make sure that you have good virus protection and anti-spyware on your computer, good firewalls. You know, if you have all that, the likelihood that you're going to get infected is probably going to be slim. But if you do have a problem that it says you're infected, shut your computer down, and you can always contact someone for help, but never go with any phone numbers that are on that pop-up, because most likely that's going to be a scam. They're going to ask to remote into your computer, or it could be that they say they're from Geek Squad and you're due a refund. They get you into your computer. They ask to get into your online banking, and they're going to electronically give you your refund of $300. And while you're on your computer, you see on your online banking, there's suddenly a $300 or $3,000 credit to your checking account. So you're not paying attention to what's going on. And what the scammer just did is he went to your savings account. He transferred $3,000 from your savings account to your checking account, and has made you believe that that $3,000 actually came from them. So now they're going to tell you that you were supposed to get $300, not $3,000. We need that $2,700 back. You can't take that money because it doesn't belong to you. So now the threats start. And what they want is Google Play cards, or they want iTunes gift cards. And had had you gone and got the gift cards, what you didn't know is the $3,000 that you thought was from this company is actually your own money that was in your savings account. So you're getting ready to send out your savings to the scammer. So, that's probably, we have quite a few customers that fall victim to the pop-up scams. Your lottery scams, and I apologize, I'm keeping you over. Your lottery scams, really in essence what this is you get a letter or a text message or an email that you won the lottery. So you won the Publishers Clearinghouse, but you've never played the Publishers Clearinghouse, but you won anyway. And what they're asking you to do is you have to, before you can get your winnings, you have to pay for the taxes and the handling fees. One, if you won the lottery, it doesn't cost money to win. So any taxes or handling fees, that's going to come automatically out of your winnings. You're not going to have to upfront pay anything to get your lottery winnings. But if you didn't win, it should tell you right away. If you never played the El Gordo lottery, then you can't win the El Gordo lottery. You have to pay to win. But again, they could be after your bank account details, and their bottom line, they want that money that you're getting ready to send out. I think your work at home scams or your mystery shoppers, there is a legitimate mystery shopper program, but typically you don't get a check for anything more than maybe $100 to do your shopping duties. But a mystery shopper scam is you're getting your assignment letter and they give you a pretty sizable check. Usually it's between maybe $2,000 to $3,000. You're told to deposit the check at your bank after the money's available. Then part of your duty as a mystery shopper is either to do a Western Union or a Walmart to Walmart money transfer. Usually it's gift cards. They've cracked down on some of the Western Union and Walmart money transfers because they're making them a little bit more liable for scam victims. And now they're asking people to maybe go to CVS or Walmart and buy gift cards. So once you buy your gift cards, then you're supposed to call your mystery shopper representative and send them photos of the cards and the numbers on the back just to prove that you've done your mystery shopper duty. So once the scammer gets a hold of those card numbers, that money's as good as gone. It's very difficult unless you call and get a stop on those cards right away. That money, it gets spent pretty quickly. And if you buy the gift cards, these are losses that the customers, they're going to fall victim to this and they are financially responsible for it. So any checks that you negotiate that are part of a scam, yes, you are a victim, but when you take the check to the bank and you put it into your account and you spend the money, you are financially responsible for the check. So that's where you need to make sure you know exactly what you're dealing with and don't buy into the bogus stories. Your imposter scams. I touched on this a little bit, that you're contacted by someone that is pretending to be a trusted person. So again, your bank security department, the FBI, Secret Service. I had someone that thought that they got a call from Homeland Security throwing around threats, the IRS. But bottom line, these people are wanting to gain personal information. So they may be after your social security number, account numbers, asked to withdraw money. I had a gentleman actually today, a branch had contacted me that our customer was contacted by someone that told him that his social security number had been compromised. And it was discovered through their investigation that they had made this big arrest, that there was cars rented in his name, and hotel rooms, and the car that was confiscated had drugs in it. So one, they want to make you feel like that you're part of this big arrest that they made. So now you're scared. And so what they had asked him to do was, one, they got out of him how much money he had in his bank account and was asking him to withdraw the money from his account. I'm not sure exactly what story they gave him, but he came to the bank and he was going to withdraw money from his account. So they go to great lengths to try to scare money and information out of people. So bottom line, do not give out financial information on the phone unless you're initiating the call and you know who you're dealing with. Don't let anybody scare information out of you. Your online sales scams. Yeah, occasionally we have this, that you're selling something online, either through eBay, Craigslist. Say you're selling maybe a sofa on eBay. Someone shows interest in buying your sofa. You're selling it for $300. And they send you a check that's for above and beyond what the asking price is. Either they made a mistake and they ask you to send the money back to them and, hey, you can keep a little bit for yourself for the trouble. Or maybe they're sending you extra to ship the sofa. So you need to send the money to this third party that's going to make arrangements to get the sofa to them. They don't want your sofa. What they want is the money that you're getting ready to send off to this third party. So it's probably a good idea, if you are going to sell something online, not to take a check as payment for what you're selling. Opt for a PayPal account. Yeah, anything but accepting a check, because you just don't know if the check is really authentic. Again, if you negotiate the check, you're financially liable. Okay, and lastly is the grandparent scam. And you get a call, you think that it's one of your relatives, they're in distress. So could be grandma got a phone call from who she thought was her grandson, especially around spring break time. Hey, grandma, you got to help me. I'm down here in Mexico on spring break with my buddies. We got ourselves in trouble. We got arrested. I need help getting bailed out of jail. Please don't tell mom and dad. So one, they act like they're in trouble, and they swear that they think that they're dealing with their family member. So they may sound upset, any way that they can make it sound, have some sort of reason why their voice sounds a little bit different, either that they're sick or that they're just upset, maybe they're crying, and so that's going to disguise their voice a little bit. But again, the victim is urged not to tell anybody because they don't want to get themselves further in trouble. They may call late at night to confuse the potential victim. But easiest way for the grandparent to not fall victim this way is if they would just pick up the phone. Yes, they were told not to say anything, but had they actually contacted their son or daughter, they could have easily verified that, one, he's not on spring break in Mexico. He's down in the basement playing video games. So they need to make sure that they actually look into it before they send any money. Any questions on any of those scams? I know I've thrown a lot at you. But bottom line, if you are a victim of a scam, you want to contact your bank. Again, kind of like your identity theft, you want to contact your bank, contact your credit cards, change your logon credentials, file the police report. You can go to the FTC and file a complaint. And if your Social Security number is compromised, again, you want to place either an alert or a freeze on your credit report. But This is just a few of the scams that are out there. It's amazing. I learn something new every day on different ways that people manipulate and take advantage of people to get money out of their bank accounts. And they don't care who they hurt to get what they want. Any questions at all? Yeah, anything, have any of you fallen victim or know anybody that maybe one of these particular scams?
No.
Hopefully you won't, but the information that I've given you tonight, I think, at least I hope that will at least give you some ideas on how not to fall victim to this. Hopefully it won't happen to any of you ladies. Okay, well, I kept you 16 minutes over, which I apologize for that. I appreciate the time you've given me, and I hope that this helps some for you.
No, Anna, it's a lot of great information. So it's, yeah, there's a lot to process. And, it seems like there are lots of things that we can do to avoid scams. And sometimes things like the breaches that come from the big companies, you just feel helpless. So it's good to have some things that we can do, some tools.
Bottom line, if it sounds too good to be true, usually it is.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice though?
Yeah. We all want to win the lottery, but you have to play it to win it.
Right.
Most of us don't win it.
Right.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Anna or any follow-up?
No questions. That was a great presentation. I did learn a lot and I took notes.
Thank
So
you. I hope you guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we've recorded it too. So if you have any questions, you can let us know, or we can send that out to you.
Okay,
Great.
awesome.
Okay. Well, Anna, thank you so much. Thanks for spending a good chunk of your evening sharing this information, but it's, and I think it will hassle for a lot of people. So,
Okay. Well, I
okay.
appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay. Thanks everyone for signing on, and look for some of our other upcoming workshops. We're having 2 every month. So coming. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.